It's October 2021, and Meta, then called Facebook Inc., has a problem. It's hemorrhaging younger users and has been for some time. Mark Zuckerberg is aware of the problem and acknowledges it on Facebook's Q3 earnings call, in measured terms of course.
But over the last decade, as the audience that uses our apps has expanded so much and we focused on serving everyone, our services have gotten dialed to be the best for the most people who use them rather than specifically for young adults.
While Zuckerberg is sort of saying that his apps are just too effective for their own good, it doesn't take much reading between the lines to understand the urgency, especially when he goes on to talk about Apple and TikTok, describing the latter as one of the most effective competitors we have ever faced. The solution? Making serving young adults their North Star. In fact, Zuckerberg would go on to mention young adults 5 times in the space of a couple of paragraphs of the transcription, and references North Star again later in the call, in response to a question from JP Morgan's Doug Anmuth. An internal leak earlier that same year, provided to Congress and a consortium of news organizations by a former employee, would highlight the true scale of the problem. The Verge, one of the news organizations the leak was shared with, reported that teenage users of the Facebook app in the US had declined by 13% since 2019, and were projected to drop 45% over the next 2 years, driving an overall decline in daily users in the company's most lucrative ad market. There was even bad news for Instagram, which, despite being incredibly popular with teens, was starting to engage with the app less. In the words of one of the leaked memos, the aging up issue is real. The leak contained a multitude of revelations that further damaged Facebook's reputation too, such as an awareness of their own failure to crack down on toxic users, and even the experimental manipulation of users' emotions. Facebook had started the 2020s in crisis mode, the butt of jokes by the demographic that gave them their start, a far cry from its early days when it was the place every teen logged onto daily. But much like Zuckerberg himself, Facebook has a plan to reverse its fortunes. Will it work though, or is it too late? Let's get into it. To put Facebook's loss of younger users into perspective, the percentage of teens who say they ever use Facebook has dropped from 71% in 2014 to 33% in 2023, and that's a slight improvement from its lowest point in 2022. This drop didn't happen overnight, and I saw it firsthand as it was slowly replaced with Instagram, which itself was chipped away at by Snapchat, and then, more recently, TikTok. Although it has stemmed losses to those platforms through the introduction of features such as stories and reels. It's easy to forget that Facebook wasn't always associated with older people, but the arrival of the older generations, often younger users' parents, was a big contributing factor in their move away from Facebook. Even then, there's a good chance Facebook had begun to lose users from other age groups by 2022, as its daily active users dropped for the first time ever. The Facebook brand had become so poisonous that Facebook Inc. renamed itself to Meta. Meta claims this was to reflect who we are and what we hope to build, and to be metaverse first, not Facebook first. But it's difficult not to see it in the context of the preceding decade and a half of bad press. This post from a Gen X subreddit highlights how the souring towards Facebook had become intergenerational, with politics being a commonly cited reason in the replies, and the 2020 US presidential election being a tipping point for many. In an internal presentation included in the 2021 leak, Chief Product Officer Chris Cox said that young adults perceive content as boring, misleading, and negative. They often have to get past irrelevant content to get to what matters. They have a wide range of negative associations with Facebook, including privacy concerns, impact to their well-being, along with low awareness of relevant services. But honestly, I think many people in other age groups feel this way too. Even if your friends are still on Facebook, there's a less than ideal chance you'll see their posts, and you have to wade through excessive notifications just to keep up to date with the most important goings on. In spite of all this, Facebook's more popular than you might realize, with 3 billion monthly active users and 2 billion using it daily, about 1 in every 4 people on Earth. Unsurprisingly, it's vitally important to Meta itself, with over half of its revenue in 2023 coming from Facebook. For people who don't use Facebook regularly, including myself, it can be hard to understand why. In our minds, it's probably not where the action's happening. It's become synonymous with AI slop and racism, and old people. While this may be partly true, it's not just old people and lovers of AI slop using it. So why do people still use it? A user asked this question on Reddit and got some interesting answers, the top one of which was simply groups. In response, the OP asked why they can't use forums or Reddit, to which another commenter, a moderator of a large group, pointed out, convenience. Facebook has a huge advantage of so many people already having accounts, what's called the network effect, a business principle that illustrates the idea that when more people use a product or service, its value increases. For many, it's the one place they check regularly, or at least the place they check the most. Other commenters said they use it for connecting with friends and family, in contrast to Instagram, which can feel more geared towards entertainment, especially with the emphasis on Reels. For many, this is more important than celebrities and influencers, especially as we grow up. Commenters shared how they tried to get friends and family to switch, but they found they were simply too settled in. And even then, there's really no direct equivalent. People forget how long it took to get older people on Facebook in the first place.
Own daughters called her crazy.
My kids who said it was for young people.
Meta had begun to think about how to appeal to Gen Z as early as 2019, when they published this article on the topic, which also serves as an example of just where they went wrong the first time. While the article acknowledges the importance of the visual format to Gen Zs, it's only mentioned in passing. On Instagram and other platforms, brands can connect with Gen Zers in their universal native language, visuals, whether that's stories, emojis, stickers, or all of the above. The content doesn't need to be overly polished. This may be true for brands trying to connect with Gen Z, but it's also why Gen Zs don't post to Instagram's feed as much. There's too much pressure to be polished, and the same reason applies to Facebook. As a 2021 leak showed, posting by teens on Instagram had dropped 13% from 2020 and remains the most concerning trend, the researchers noted. The increased use of TikTok by teens meant that we are likely losing our total share of time. This is part of the appeal of Snapchat for younger users. It's more raw and casual, and remains surprisingly popular to this day. The article also says that Instagram plays an important role in helping Gen Zers deepen their passion and connect to the bigger picture. They use the platform to explore their interests, and they expect brands to get involved in a cultural conversation. This might have been true in 2019, but TikTok easily proved itself to be vastly superior in this area and quickly became the platform of choice for Gen Zs. TikTok's For You page is extremely good at surfacing niche, relevant content, even posts that wouldn't occur to you to be of interest. The algorithm that's its secret sauce knows its users better than themselves, and users don't really need to follow accounts because they know the feed will probably show their latest posts anyway. Reels have taken off on Instagram in the past couple of years, but TikTok remains the video app of choice for many Gen Zs. The article also claims that while they prize their individuality, Gen Zs also crave the connection that communities create, which may explain why there are over 10 million groups on Facebook, with 1.4 billion people using them every month. Even by 2019, Gen Zs weren't using Facebook much, so the idea that they were a big contributor to groups feels questionable at best. Gen Z does crave connection and community though. They just ended up creating this community in places like Discord and Reddit. Facebook groups are one of the reasons many people still use Facebook, so this was really a missed opportunity for Meta. By the time of the 2021 Q3 earnings call we talked about at the start of this video, it was clear that their existing strategy hadn't worked. Meta, then Facebook Inc., had a plan though, although Zuckerberg warned this shift will take years, not months, to fully execute. Gen Zs have yet to flock in droves to Facebook since that call, but Meta has made progress with its plan. At an event for creators in October 2024, head of Facebook, Tom Allison, was keen to talk about some of their recent successes, saying that, "I think the reason we're talking about it so much this year is we made a lot of product investments over the last year or two that are really starting to hit the mark with young adults, like Marketplace, like groups, and bringing more creators onto Facebook, and that we are really all about being around for the next 20 years, and in order to do that, we wanted to make sure that we are building for the next generation, so that became really our number one focus." In that 2021 earnings call a few years earlier, they alluded to significant changes to Instagram and Facebook in the next year to further lean into video and make Reels a more central part of the experience. The next year, they did just that, and rolled out Facebook Reels globally. This seems to have been successful. Of the young adults that use Facebook, they spend a lot of time on video. It was revealed in the October 2024 event that young adults on Facebook spend 60% of their time watching videos, and more than half watch Reels daily. Unsurprisingly, Meta sees TikTok-style feeds as essential to Gen Z, hence why they're bringing a full-screen video experience to Facebook via an update to the Video tab, putting short-form, long-form, and live videos all in one place. At the event, Meta also announced the Explore tab, a move that sees it trying to encroach on apps like Pinterest and the ByteDance-owned Lemon8. The latter of which got off to a difficult start in 2023, but has seen much more success this year. Although, opinions still seem to be mixed, with common criticisms being regurgitated content and a general feel of being too manufactured. This creates an opportunity for Facebook to encroach on it and Pinterest's territory, with a heavy focus on personalized recommendations. Something to remember though is that Gen Zs are older now than when that article was written in 2019. There's varying opinions on the birth years of Gen Z, but Wikipedia says 1997 and 2012, so let's go with that. They have different priorities still than when they were teens, and Meta's focused on meeting them where they are now, rather than catering to who they were when they first missed them. They're adults, some have been for almost a decade. That means they have things to buy and sell, and like young adults at any point in history, younger Gen Zs have less money. Although the picture is murky on whether they have less than previous generations. The New York Times ran an article covering how Alicia Chu and Shersu use Facebook Market extensively, allowing them to afford things they wouldn't be able to otherwise. They even created a spreadsheet of all the money saved, with Ms. Chu commenting that, "As someone who's in their young 20s, I want to have nicer things, but I don't have the financial means to get there yet." Marketplace's popularity among Gen Zs shouldn't be surprising anyway, as it's already one of the most popular sites for selling secondhand goods across all generations. In the redesign, Marketplace will sit under a nearby section of the Explore tab. While Gen Z is more digitally capable than other generations, although there is some concern around a lack of computer skills, many Gen Zs do want to engage with their local community, even if they aren't sure how. Local focus groups are a potential solution for this. There are already niche but powerful local apps like Geneva, which was recently acquired by Bumble, Lex, which is focused on LGBTQ communities, and DM, which is for girls, women, and gender expansive people. These make for a much more attractive proposition for Gen Zs than possibly the biggest local social media app, Nextdoor, which has a horrendous reputation for curtain-switching paranoia and racism. Groups are one of Facebook's biggest strengths because there's a lack of effective competitors in this space, especially when you consider the threat TikTok represents in a space like short-form video. Erin Carter, 23, said Facebook was something she only ever used to keep up with her grandma, until she decided to leave North Carolina and make a new life in New York. That's when she joined a New York City area Facebook group and made a post in search of a roommate. It led her to go apartment hunting online with 2 strangers she met on a video call. As head of Facebook, Tom Allison said at that creators event, there's signs Facebook is making progress towards its objectives. In an article he posted on Meta Newsroom, Tom said that there were 5 quarters of healthy growth in young adult usage in the US and Canada, and that over 40 million American and Canadian young adults are daily active users, the highest in 3 years. There's no publicly available historic data on Facebook's young adult usage, probably because it had been tanking for half a decade. But the 18 to 24 demographic now makes up 18.6% of its users, and 25 to 34, about a third of which is Gen Z, is 24.2%. Meta were very clearly excited at these glimmers of improvement, so much so that they wrote this article. I'm not sure who it's for. I don't think Gen Zs are reading articles to be convinced to use Facebook. That's beside the point anyway. The lack of use of Facebook is framed as a Gen Z problem, which is true to an extent. Facebook did miss out on Gen Z. But Facebook only has one point of comparison, millennials. The technology landscape was very different during Facebook's first 10 years or so. Most people were using Facebook on their computer for a long time. Smartphone penetration didn't pass 50% in the US until 2012. As smartphones proliferated, apps like Instagram took off, due in large part to their pervasiveness and their ease of use. Facebook had the good sense to buy Instagram for the bargain price of $300 million in cash and 23 million shares of stock, a sale that was compared to that of Flickr to Yahoo. Teens and young adults started spending more time there. Snapchat took off, and Instagram added stories in response, successfully retaining younger users. There's not much intrinsically different about Gen Zs and millennials, the latter of which would have been using TikTok if it was around 10 years earlier. I don't think Facebook actually lost Gen Z, it just wasn't the right app for them, and it couldn't be. Until TikTok came around, Meta wasn't at risk of losing them. They're still religiously using Instagram for the most part. Even then, they're only at serious risk of spending less time on the app, not abandoning it altogether. But now Gen Z's older, Facebook's function does make more sense. They have different priorities, they're adults, and have more overlap with other adults than teens and kids. Ultimately, we all have a finite amount of time in the day, and Meta will only be satisfied when we spend every waking moment on their apps. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video. What do you think about Facebook's latest attempt to appeal to Gen Zs? Is it going to work, or is it too far gone? Let me know what you think in the comments. I release a new video every couple of weeks, so make sure to drop a like and hit the subscribe button. I'll see you soon.